Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is me, Jonathan Alexander. I'm here to host our show, Life After Happiness. Today, I have my co-host, Barbara. Are you there, Barbara?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Hi,
Barbara.
And I also have my other co-host, Kelly. Are you there, Kelly?
Yeah, hi, everybody.
Hi,
now,
Kelly.
you were the one who bought the guests that we have today. So why don't you introduce Chris to everyone?
Okay, I will be happy to. Today, our guest is a friend of mine, and he has been researching all kinds of contamination in Michigan of farms with PFAS mostly, and his name is Chris Newland, and he's here today with some really shocking findings. So take it away, Chris.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I really want to have you come up to Otsego and show you this site because it is visible. They try to hide it from the public and obscure it, and they won't acknowledge it. The state won't. But what was depressing was to go on vacation and read the story where your family farm is like number 3 in the nation with PFAS problems because it's a dairy farm now, and there's 2 other dairy farms in the country that were affected, and my brother's farm is mentioned in a press conference by Michigan Department of Agriculture, and so I was a little bit surprised. I'm waiting to come home in Missouri, and I'm like, they're mentioning this in Michigan's papers, and I'm like, I was a little vindicated, but I was also a little shocked too that somebody from the Michigan Department of Agriculture mentioned it in a press conference what was going on, and that we have no standards in Michigan for testing for contamination of our foods, and that's kind of appalling to me.
Very
appalling.
appalling.
Very scary. Yeah.
Because we do sell out of state.
Farm? Chris, where is your brother's farm? And so you're saying it's good news that they're having a press conference, but it's also what you were saying earlier, bittersweet, because you don't want your brother's farm to go out of business, but they are bringing some attention to it.
He's in Otsego, Michigan, which is in Allegan County, which we're on the west side of the state. We're 3 hours from Chicago, 3 hours from Detroit. Kalamazoo is 14 miles away. That's probably the best way to describe it. Grand Rapids is 35 miles away. So we're in southwest Michigan, and we've been a farm, family-owned for almost 100 years. So it's been in the family since 1922. So almost. We're 98 years, and we have 2 more years to go. And 4 generations of my family have farmed it. I farmed it when I was younger. I don't farm now.
Wow.
But my brother does, and that's his lifestyle. And that's the only house he's ever lived in.
It's just heartbreaking what's going on.
It's just not only there, it's other places too in the area. And we've discovered like 3 or 4 sites that we're trying to get the state to pay attention to. And this is just one site that's near and dear to me. It's where I started my research and fought the state DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, in 92. I took them on, and they ignored the site. They didn't want to get involved in 92.
I know. So they're doing a lot of ignoring. But what is the big breakthrough that Kelly was saying that you had recently? Was it that they found this on your brother's farm now, or did you find another breakthrough that happened?
Well, what had happened was there was a health survey done because people were in poor health in my old hometown of cancers, thyroid disease, miscarriages. There was a wide range of autoimmune disease, and it spurred the CDC to investigate in Otsego. And I jumped in. I'm like, hey, I've got some old information. Maybe this will help your investigation. It pushed the county health department, and they forced the hand of the DEQ for testing. The DEQ didn't want to test for PFAS on those ponds because they knew there was a problem. It was a can of worms. They were forced to test by Allegan County Health. And when they
So
tested,
then what
they found
happened?
the PFAS.
And who stops this news from going out to the public, or does it go out, and then what happens? What do people say? Is anybody doing anything besides you?
Well, there's a small group of people in Otsego that are researchers and do care. And unfortunately, we kind of get, and I don't know where it's coming from at the upper state level, but our stories is getting squashed. They won't cover it as much. It's like they pulled the media attention away from it, and the state won't publicize what they'll say. It's a small problem. A small problem in Otsego is what the official DEQ statement last October was, or it's a localized problem, and that's as much attention as we get out of the state. Yeah, they've actually said that.
Paying them to be
on
quiet?
Channel 3.
Do they give them hush money?
I don't know what's doing. I think big businesses like saying, lobbyists are saying, don't publicize it. You've got a clever PR person in Lansing that kind of controls the media or whatever. They make a phone call to the TV station and say, don't cover that story.
Wow.
And, we had an interview all ready to go on it, and they advertised it on the local TV channel, West Michigan Man, giving an update on what's going on. They advertised it on their TV station for a week, and then they pulled the story.
Oh,
with
very
no
manipulative.
explanation. Yeah. Why? What's the reason why you pulled your story? And I never did ever get an answer. They came out to my house and interviewed me for an hour. We sat down over coffee and we talked about, what was going on with the testing and stuff like that. And it got pulled for some reason.
It
gets kind of
to
sinister.
know what you know.
Well,
they want to know everything, but they don't want everybody else to know.
I asked the DEQ guy alone. We were in a meeting, and I'm like, I said, his name's Chris. I said, how could you tell the TV station that it's just a small localized problem? And he goes, my words were changed by the state level. He goes, somebody up ahead of me said, changed the words and told the TV people that there wasn't a problem. He goes, I protested that. And that tells me it's kind of sinister at the upper echelons of the state. If you're manipulating the media and you're interfering with telling a story, that tells me that there's pressure from the state on these TV stations not to broadcast the story.
It is serious.
Wow.
So, wow. But your brother's farm, are they testing on that and then they're doing press conferences because it's a different area? Or how is this getting through to the press about his farm?
Well, that state toxicologist speaking or minding a meeting in Boston, there's a lot of media people there that can't be controlled. And that's how it happened. She spoke her mind in Boston, the toxicologist.
That's a good thing then.
The woman's name is Kay Fritz, and I talked to Kay about it, and then all of a sudden she's not talking in the media anymore.
Oh. Well, at least it got out there. It was the Kalamazoo Gazette that ended up covering it, right?
Yeah, the state, the MLive. Now the Kalamazoo Gazette is part of MLive. And last Sunday, they did a front page article on what Kay Fritz said in Boston. and I was pretty surprised at that the MLive put it on their front Sunday edition, so I'm hoping some lawmakers will pick that up and we'll get. Gretchen Whitmer definitely knows what's happening with my brother's farm, and Gretchen Whitmer is the Democratic governor of Michigan. She definitely knows about Otsego and Otsego's problems. So I've been told that many times. She's well aware of the situation down in Otsego. And this was from contamination from 40 years ago. The mill went out of business in 2005, and they stopped dumping in 1984. So these chemicals that have surfaced are from the 70s and 80s when they were active out there, and they don't break down. They won't ever go away. They're artificially created, and they have to be removed.
Yes, to this poison, do you get a symptom, or are some bodies, like you personally, are you okay, or have you been exposed to this?
I got exposed in the 80s because we pastured our cows right up to that property line. Fortunately, our water supply was a quarter mile away, and it was a deep well. But
good.
You can bet that years ago, I drank the milk that we produced, and I probably have ingested PFAS all my life and not known it.
Oh. But you're okay. Some people it's going to affect differently, though, like autoimmune disease is a big one, thyroid disease, you were saying. What else? Is that area?
Well, yeah, I'm okay.
You affected?
I'm okay, but I also moved away from there years ago.
Right.
I left dairy farms in the early 90s, so I haven't lived out there in years. So
I'm glad you're okay, but the area, are there higher statistics for people coming down with problems and babies and things like that? Are there proven statistics that there are more diseases coming out in that area?
Well, yeah, the water from that dump flowed on it flowed downhill into an area where there's huge amounts of cancer clusters, and there's like four family members in a single family that died from cancer along that road. And doesn't that look a little suspicious when you've
that was very
when you've had
suspicious.
like 40 wells re-drilled on that road in the 1980s and 1990s because brown industrial chemicals got into the water supply of these people that had shallow wells? And that's the point that I brought up with the state. I said, you had over 40 wells re-drilled at a time. That means people were exposed, and the people that were exposed in those wells, they died of cancer in that area. Doesn't that sound a little fishy that we should investigate that?
Yes, we should.
Wow.
Very sad, especially when little babies and children are getting exposed to these hard chemicals that are really basically killing people.
And
it's just that. I've known many women in my area that had suffered, 5, 6 miscarriages. That are just haunted by the effects of contamination, and it's real personal when you know people that have died of cancer at an early age out there. It just hits you. It just hits you hard.
Yeah, and
then you read the documents where what was going on, and they acknowledge that the chemicals could be harmful, but we're going to dump it anyways along the property line. And I'm talking arsenic, I'm talking PCBs, which is a paper mill chemical, in addition to the PFAS. And so there's a whole host of things that were dumped out there. And it's haunting when you read the documentation from 40 years ago, what went on. I could go on and on about it's insane.
Do you think you will ever get through to anybody that could do something that really is going to stop this or fix it in any way. I mean, what really keeps you going? Because it seems like every time you turn around, you're being stopped. They're huge people, groups that are stopping this, government. What keeps you going, Chris? You just never stop trying to expose these people, which is wonderful. But I just need to know, are you going to keep doing this? What can we do to help you?
I'm going to keep going as long as I'm going to keep going as long as I can. You know, sometimes mentally it just takes after 9 months of doing it, it kind of takes you get burned out at times and you have to take 2 months off to do your own thing, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm recharging myself. The weather will change in September. It'll get cold. I won't be able to go out as much, and that's when I do my research, and that's when I recharge myself, and I go into the next year, trying to find stuff.
Because you do a lot of other things, too. Besides this, you are a professor, right? Tell the listeners a little bit about
I work in the drug industry. I work in the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay. So then
I'm just a blue-collar worker. You know, I have young kids. I care about my community, and
so sweet.
I care about my heritage. So,
okay, right. I mean, you tell the listeners you have had this farm in your family for almost 2 years away from 100 years, right?
Yeah, and before that, the guy that owned it was a pioneer in the 1860s. So that guy held on to it for 80 years. He dies, and my family buys it in 1922. So really, it goes back. There's very few owners that go back until the state of Michigan. So it was very few people have walked the land and been out there, other than the Indians.
So this is what really keeps you going, probably, is the love of your farm and your family's farm that you grew up on. And it just keeps you going. You'll never give up. But why isn't there any, you said there's a small group out there that is raising awareness. Where are these people? Can we connect with them? Can we help them? Can we support them by following them somewhere? Who are they?
Who's the group of people? Well, you've got
where can we find them?
Well, you've got various researchers they're part of a Facebook group called Justice for Otsego. And that was started because of all the health concerns. I'm just an offshoot of that. I prefer to work in a small group and not a big group like that. Because we have different methodologies I do something that's different from what they do. They're more into health surveys and things like that, and they do a good job with it, but they don't have it, they're not active in going out in the field and doing field work. So I've kind of separated myself in a way, from that. And so I'm more independent, but I will work on them with them occasionally if we have a common interest or I find something that's relevant to what they're doing.
I have a question.
Has Kelly gone out there? Kelly, have you gone out there before to the site where this is going on?
Yeah, because I grew up with it.
Yeah, and I am going to be going out with him to the sites. It's just, lately I haven't been able to. But I'm going to have some time coming up here where I'd like to be able to do that before the weather changes. And I have been out in that area, and it's scary because you have a lot of farm stands. You have a lot of places that are utilizing the land to make food and to make ice cream. There's a lot of, there's a lot of places that don't use city water. They have well water, and you don't know how deep their wells are going, so they're drinking it and not realizing that there's contamination in there. And
I have a question. Cattle just don't drink out of a cow tank. They drink out of ponds, streams, and if that's contaminated, you can't control where they're getting their water from.
Yeah.
They graze.
It seems that in the state of Michigan, there's been a lot of press involving the pollution. There was years ago. There's a movie called Roger and Me by Michael Moore, and I don't know if you've ever met Michael Moore or not. Have you ever met him?
Michael Moore? No, I've never met him. He lives in Traverse City.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of stuff involving Michigan. I think it's because your city, for some reason, lucks out when it comes to things like weather, and like I heard somewhere like the winter you get as cold as Antarctica. I mean,
we're a
and it's
Midwest
like, how
state.
do you...
we get cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
You guys are already talking
in
about it
January.
turning cold. It must get real cold.
Yeah, it was minus. Yeah,
That's when you kind of go in and start doing all your writing. You start writing
That's
about.
That's when I do my writing.
All
is when
findings.
it gets cold. So yeah.
So you go in and you start writing about it when it gets cold because you're not out and about. But you said it's an indivisible thing. Obviously, it's this chemical. So when you drive along looking at these farms, they look like, oh, what a nice farm. How sweet. Just like everything looks normal, but underneath it's not.
And what happens in the winter is I have to submit to the state for documents that could take 6 weeks. Say I find something interesting in a document, and then I have to do a Freedom of Information request, which costs quite a bit of money sometimes. And then I have to wait 6 weeks for a batch of records, and then I have to review it. Then I find something, and then it takes another 6 weeks to get those documents. So they don't make it easy. First of all, it's costly. And second of all, it takes a lot of time to get these documents. And so it's
do you have a partner you work with? Or do you
she helps me. No, I have a research partner, Deb, that helps me, goes out in the field and works with me. So I do have a partner because I can't do it all myself. And we try to plot a strategy. We interview people, and we try to put a thesis together, what we think happened. And then we present. And then you have the presentation to officials that actually do listen or do care. You hope that they care. And that's how research works.
About 3 months ago, I remember one of my first shows you were on. Did anything come from being on our show? Did you raise some more awareness? Did anybody come your way that heard and got on your bandwagon with you?
Well, I talked to the state governor's office, and he assured me that they will. In October they're doing soil testing, and we're waiting for the results on. They're testing all the farms for PFAS soil, but I'm not confident that I'm going to get an honest answer out of them.
These are huge farms. We're not just talking a few cows. We're talking. You do things on there. That's your agriculture is your brother's livelihood. There's like thousands of cows, and it's like a huge farm. Am I correct with saying that?
Yeah, he farms about 300 acres, but there's 70 other farms that were affected in the area. And so we're waiting for the soil testing to come back on these up to 70 farms. And that's supposed to happen in October. We're supposed to get the results in October.
Okay, great. And you're going to let us know what those results are? What are you hoping is your biggest outcome?
I'm not confident that they're going to be honest about it.
Okay, and that is your biggest hope, that they'll be honest. But after that, what if they say, okay, yes, you got us. Here, you are contaminated and it's our fault. Then what? How could we fix this? Is there a way that you could ever fix this chemical that has leaked all over the soil? Is there any way you can get this out of there?
they would have to strip the soil, and that's why I don't think they're going to be honest about it. The only way to get that out of the ground is to strip that soil and take it to a landfill, an approved landfill. Well, how do you strip the soil out of thousands of acres? It would be astronomical.
Yeah, so basically they just need a lot of money, and they need to get out before their family gets cancer.
Or you leave it vacant and you don't farm on it. So you have thousands of acres that is going to be vacant. The state will buy it. Is that what's going to happen? The state buys the land and nobody can do anything. Nobody can put a house on it. I guess that's another option that could happen too. If you don't want to strip the soil off farms and clean it up, then that happens along the Kalamazoo River quite a bit. The state will buy contaminated river property, and it becomes state property, and there's no development on it.
And then people roam around, and maybe they're fishing. They probably don't even have signs up warning people.
Well, you can't eat the fish out of the Kalamazoo River. You can sport fish and throw it back, but you can't eat it because it's contaminated, and that's from the paper mills.
Does everybody know this, and it's like an unwritten rule, or are there some people that are not aware of that?
If you're poor and you're hungry, guess what? You're going to eat the fish.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that do that will eat the fish because they're poor.
They're hungry.
They're hungry.
Yeah.
They don't. So you do have a lot of that going on. People do eat those fish out of that. They shouldn't because of the contaminants, but they do.
Are the fish deformed sometimes?
No, I don't think they're deformed, but they carry those contaminants that are. If over time you're going to get sick if you keep eating that fish.
Maybe that's a good way to test, is just testing the fish. It might be easier than bringing the soil on into the lab. You can test a fish easily.
They post signs, do not eat the fish. You can,
Do they?
Yeah, there are signs along the river where they cleaned it up that warn you not to eat the fish out of the Kalamazoo River. And most people realize that's not healthy. I would never eat a fish out of the Kalamazoo River. I would never do it.
Some people might not know they're doing it either.
Yeah,
What if
you
you
have
go
a lot
over
of
to somebody's
migrants.
house and you're having dinner? Are you trusting these people? You could just be getting cancer just by visiting your relatives once a year.
You have a lot of migrants that live up here that fish out of the river, and I feel bad for them. Because I'm sure nobody's told them, hey, that's not good.
Can you go over and let them know?
Now, there's no way for me to let them know because there's so many of them, and I just don't have the time. I don't have the time. They're scattered all over Southwest Michigan because of the farms, the fruit crop, and things like that. They come up and they pick strawberries, they pick apples, they pick blueberries. So we have a big migrant force up here in Southwest Michigan.
Oh, yeah, and corn detasseling and all that, yeah.
You could go to South Haven, which is on Lake Michigan, on any given Saturday or Sunday, and you'll see the migrants on the pier fishing out by the lighthouse.
Yeah, and you can also see the little tiny pieces of plastic washing ashore. But with PFAS, you don't see it.
PFAS is invisible, like radiation. You wouldn't know it's worse than radiation because at least radiation you can detect it with a meter. PFAS, you'd have to send it to a lab. But we should have some testing of our eggs, milk, and our beef and our grain supply to make sure that it doesn't get into our cereal, our milk supply, things like that. We should isolate where it's coming from, but we also have to compensate the farmers for their loss too, because they didn't cause it.
Yeah,
big into the state.
Didn't you say
I'm
that
big
they
into
were
the
putting
state.
it? They were putting it into like compost and things like that people can use in their yard.
Yeah, that was the big problem that I had on this old dump site that's next to my brother's farm. Sits a composting facility that was sponsored by the state, and they took 30 acres of this dump and they scattered it all over Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. And they sold the compost. They sold the compost. They turned it into compost, and they mixed the dirt with the compost, and they carted it out of there. And I battled them for 2 hours over the phone to try to get them to admit that that's what happened, and it was silent. The guy goes, I can't comment prior to this year. And I think he used the year 1995. I said, you know that soil got carted out of there. And I'm talking 30 acres is a lot of soil. Huh?
Why was it? Who in their right mind, if they knew it was contaminated, would do that, or they didn't know it was at the time?
Well, they knew it wasn't. There was a lot of documentation, and they knew that there were contaminants there, but the state has a program of trying to turn industrial waste into compost. And most people don't realize that they actually have people from the state that try to turn industrial waste into compost.
Is that to make money or to try to dilute it?
They try to find a use for it, you know. So they try to take bio waste from a paper mill and turn it into something useful. And they've been doing it for years, but they don't publicize it.
Yeah.
And the guy's name is Fred Sellers. Fred Sellers from Michigan Department of Natural Resources. His job is to turn junk into gold. That's what I told him. In other words, I said something else, but I said, so in other words, that's your job.
Wow.
And, you know,
so
we battled to a silence.
Wow.
We battled
so
to
even if you're buying organic, you can't be assured it's organic.
It's not organic. You know, the compost is not organic. It's made from industrial waste.
But if you're buying organic from a farm, they can say that it's organic, but they don't know there's PFAS in it.
You would never know unless you tested it yourself, because the state doesn't test it.
This is scary on so many levels. You think you're buying safe produce. You think you're buying like safe organic stuff to use in your own backyard, in your little, little, I'm losing my wording right now, but, when you're doing your own little, growing your tomatoes and your whatevers in your backyard, you think you're doing it in a safe way, and you could be getting stuff that's already contaminated, not even knowing.
Well, how about this? A lot of the grain in Southwest Michigan goes to Kellogg's. Okay, Kellogg's is out of Battle Creek, right?
Yeah.
Not far away. So your Rice Krispies, what else do they make? Corn Flakes? Comes from grain out of Southwest Michigan.
And
guess what was in
there.
Southwest Michigan 40 years ago? Paper mills.
Oh, yeah, Post is there.
It's a vicious circle, So do we test Kellogg's Corn Flakes? Do we test Kellogg's Corn Flakes for PFAS? No, we don't. A lot of people, and guess who eats Corn Flakes? Children. Children all over the world, children in the United States, So we don't test the grain for PFAS.
Yeah.
And it gets in the Corn Flakes. Michigan exports milk to other states, Michigan milk just doesn't stay here. It gets turned into ice cream, cheese, exported out of state. You're in California eating Michigan milk. You just don't know it.
Oh, wow.
There's an egg company. There's a huge egg company that's built on, that farms on mill waste. I've got it in documentation. I don't feel bad about saying it because, where the stuff was spread there in the 1980s, well, they produce enough eggs that they don't stay in Michigan. They ship those eggs out. So eggs, and then, your beef and pork, they would pick that up too. So you're getting low levels of the doses of PFAS in your food.
And it's not just people that eat meat products. It's in, like, the soils that fruits and vegetables are grown in and grains.
Yep, that too. Myers, a grocery store chain, which is out of Michigan, buys from zucchini farms in, Michigan, where they grow pickles and things like that. Well, how do you know the soil isn't bad there? So, yeah, it gets put into potatoes. They're big potato farms out here. So it gets taken into the crop. The state just doesn't want to admit that because that would cost them billions of dollars. It'd be a huge nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We've already gone through this once in my lifetime in the 1970s, and they had to kill 30,000 cattle because they were because flame retardant got put into the cattle feed, and they ended up slaughtering 30,000 cattle and burying them in a sealed pit up in Grayling, Michigan.
Wow.
Because that chemical is very similar to PFAS. It doesn't break down. And that's what they did in 1973. Ron Howard actually made a movie about it in 1973 called Bitter Harvest, where he played a dairy farmer. It's a great movie, Bitter Harvest, about the
watch that.
Yeah.
PBB scare in the 1970s.
Wow.
So that's why the state
other
acts the
people
way
are
they
trying
do.
to expose it, doing movies and bringing awareness to this. I'm glad you're not giving up. And we aren't going to give up. We want to help too.
Yeah.
We'll never give up. It's a war. It's literally going to be
It's a war.
Yeah,
This is just one of many across the whole country of some kind of poisonous chemical getting in. I mean, this is just Michigan, but there has to be more of these kind of things going on throughout this whole country. Probably so many different kinds of chemicals.
Absolutely.
From different mills,
a lot of
from
your,
different things, right? All over
a lot
the
of your
country.
Air Force bases use this as they use it as firefighting foam. So anywhere there was an Air Force base, they use this particular chemical as firefighting foam for plane crashes. Well, that stuff is thousands of times stronger than what we've got. And
oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yes.
So it shows up.
And sometimes they put like that
at
over
military
30,000
bases.
acres if there's a fire.
One of the things
Wow.
I know people that were young Marines that died of pancreatic cancer that were at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and drank bad water for 2 years. And, so they're dying young, and nobody's putting it together. Hey, you got it from the water supply at Camp Lejeune when you were stationed there. Well, there's an airfield there.
Oh, boy.
That's the sad part. Nobody's put that together yet. That, some of our military bases are really polluted.
Oh.
Good luck taking on the military.
Yeah,
they're going to deny it.
Yeah, that's not going to work well.
I know 2 widows whose husbands died in their 40s, and they were both stationed at the same place, and they died of pancreatic cancer at an early age.
Wow.
So yeah, it is on military bases or in old industrial plants that everybody's forgotten about because they were torn down, but the soil still exists.
Oh. Yeah, and people go into the military to protect us and keep us safe, and here this is happening to them. They're not even dying, fighting in battle for us. They're dying on our soil. That's really sad.
Well, it gets in the soil and it gets in the groundwater, and once it gets in the aquifer, you can't get rid of it either. So it's just not the soil; it's the aquifer too itself.
That's really sad.
It makes you wonder where you live.
He's telling them.
It makes you feel bad. You build a house and you hope your property's safe, but it's not really because nobody tested for it.
Oh. And they have home kits for radon, but they don't have home kits for things like this.
No, they don't test for PFAS and other dioxins. That's another one that's the health effects are really bad too. There's a whole host of chemicals that won't break down in the soil.
It seems like if there was enough people pushing for it, they would have enough labs. They would be able to come up with a test like they do the radon test that you can do at home and know for sure whether you're safe or not. When there's enough demand, the price would go down.
Well, you got to understand.
Then what do you do about it?
You got to understand. These chemicals are so potent that they measure them in parts per trillion. And I'm not talking. That's like one drop of water in like 7 Olympic-sized swimming pools. I think that's what they told me. That's how potent and damaging these chemicals can be. One drop in 7 swimming pools.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So it's very hard to test for this stuff. Normal stuff you test for parts per million. Here we're talking one drop in 7 swimming pools, 7 Olympic swimming pools. That's pretty hard to find.
Yeah. Wow.
In my brother's case, you're talking 2,000 drops in that size. That's how potent that stuff is. Parts per it's hard to picture, but parts per trillion is pretty small.
Yeah. Right now, I kind of feel like moving to like Finland or northern Canada.
So that's why it's not going to be a common test, because you really have to have some sensitive equipment and some specialty labs, and there's only a handful of them in the country that can test for dioxins and PFAS. And because those labs are so expensive, the equipment's so expensive to do a test.
So why did people dump this in the first place? Were they just careless, or was it that they didn't realize how bad this stuff was and that it wouldn't break down? Or was it just, they figured somebody else will deal with it?
Well, you had up until like the late 70s, the EPA wasn't created until 1970. So there were no laws about dumping of anything. So that was the first problem, is we didn't have any rules, we didn't have any enforcement, and we didn't know what we were looking for. And so, of course, these companies are going to try to take the cheap way out of things, and they're just going to raw dump it. They're going to find an old patch of land, and in this case, Otsego, that's where they found it, and they created their own private dump, and they dumped it back there.
Oh.
Because at that time it was all rural farmland, so, there was nobody watching them, and then they hid and did it. Nobody knew about it. I just happened to be a little kid in the 1970s and witnessed them doing it.
Oh, okay. So they probably didn't realize the ramifications either, and they thought, well, if nobody knows, it's not a big deal.
Well, that, but they were dumping other stuff back there too. I've got pictures of what their dump used to look like. So there is proof that something bad went on back there. So it's not like they got away with it. They knew what they were doing was wrong, but who can stop a corporation? It takes a lot of money to take on a corporation.
Okay. So, yeah, it was evidence that they were changing the land and it wasn't right, but it was like, well, what are they going to do? I mean, nobody's going to stop it, and, what's done is done, and they're just going to keep doing it till they can't.
In this case of Menasha is a private company that owns over 100 paper mills in Wisconsin and in that area. Over 100 paper mills. They're huge. Their sales are over $1 billion a year. It's almost impossible for somebody like me to take on Menasha in the court system.
Yeah.
It takes a government entity to take them on. So
yeah, they don't sound real helpful.
Yeah, they've had 2 warning letters in the last year. You need to clean your site up, and I think they've ignored both of them. I don't know what's going on because the state won't release the contents that they wrote. The Attorney General wrote to Menasha telling them they had to clean it up. But when I requested that record, they haven't given it to me yet. So that's the sad part, too. Sometimes you can submit a request and you won't get the answer. They won't give you the information either.
Oh.
And that's the sinister part. I've written many requests only to be turned down or ignored. I've asked specific topics, and I've been turned down many times.
Do you
or they
think
tell me
it's
it doesn't
possible?
exist.
Oh. Do you think it's possible that a corporation could pay the government to have them silence it?
What's that? I didn't hear what you said.
Do you think it's possible for a corporation to pay a fine or pay the government to silence it and let them get away with it?
Well, who wrote the corporate laws on lobbyists? So Michigan's environmental laws are extremely weak. You only have so many years to, from discovery to sue a company. The laws are in their favor.
Oh.
The laws are in their favor in taking them on because they've had years to craft the laws in Michigan, and that's what they did. So we have weak environmental laws, and it's almost impossible to take on a corporation that's contaminated an area. They've made it that difficult.
So there's like a statute of limitations?
Yeah, it's called like discovery. Once you discover a problem, you have like 2 years to file a complaint in the court system and take them on. And from the time of discovery. So they make it very hard with their administrative laws to take on. And number one, it's going to take a lot of money to take them on because you're going to have to prove your case. You're going to have to, those tests are expensive. And then you have to prove that they did it. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's a group of people up in Grand Rapids trying to take 3M on over PFAS. And they, and they're running into a real hard struggle against that. So it's not an easy thing. It's David versus Goliath.
Oh boy. So
I'm glad that we found, at least we got it tested and we know what we're dealing with. At least we got that. That's something. And we got the state to acknowledge that that there's problems in the food supply. That's a big thing. But now we need testing of the food.
Yeah, that sounds like it's the next step if we can get it.
And we need the state to get on board and say, hey, we're going to keep our citizens safe. But money always seems to overrule that. It's surprising when big money is involved how the state turns an eye to it.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Unfortunately, big money speaks a lot, and mouths get paid.
You got some big corporations in Michigan that operate that are polluters, that produce a lot of hazardous chemicals and stuff. And they have big influence at the state capitol.
Yeah, it's going to cost them a lot of money to change how they do things.
You're from the same area. You grew up with the Upjohn Company. The Upjohn Company was the biggest polluter in Michigan.
I don't
By
doubt
far
it.
the biggest
you can
polluter.
walk out the door without smelling it. Yeah.
By far the biggest polluter in Michigan was the Upjohn Company. We were number one on their list of stuff that chemicals that we used. And so, you know what I'm talking about, because you smelled it every day and you saw it a little bit, so.
Oh, God.
It exists.
Yeah, you walk out the door and about choke. Yeah.
So, but no, I'd like to take you on this tour sometime, and if you get some time, I'll take you up there and I'll show you the various sites up there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see what my schedule is next week. Maybe we can do that.
Yeah, mine's open too, and we'll get up there and we'll go for a walk, and I'll actually show you those darkened ponds from 40 years ago. How bad it is. You'll be appalled.
I'll take some pictures. Yeah, I'll try to do that in the morning because I'll be working in the afternoon. But yeah, we could do that in the morning, and I'll post them on our site and stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the latest update of what's going on. Is now the state is acknowledging, hey, maybe we got a gap in our food testing system.
Thank God they're acknowledging it, though. That's a good step in the right direction.
It's an unexpected turn. That's not where I thought we would be last year at this time, but it's a good direction, and I'm pleased to see that. This thing has more twists and turns and how it's gonna go than you can think. But I think it's gonna be a national story sooner or later. I think somebody's gonna pick up on it, and there's gonna be pressure in Lansing to do testing.
Good. I hope so. The more people hear about it and talk about it, I think the more exposure it gets, the more pressure there'll be that they'll have to do something about it, because as long as it's swept under the rug and nobody knows, then they don't have to do anything about it. They can keep it quiet.
Well, I'd like to see it solved in my lifetime, and I saw this stuff go on when I was 10 years old. Okay, now I'm 54 years old. And so hopefully I got another 40 years on the planet, but I would like to get I'd like to get this solved in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to get it solved.
Seems like kind of it's been my fate to deal with this corporation all my life and take them on. As a witness as a kid, to taking them on in my 20s, and now I'm back trying to take them on in my 50s. I'd like to see justice done by the time I leave the planet, but I will keep fighting as long as I can.
Good. Well, we're right along there with you.
Never quit.
Yeah, exactly. People need to know. And, until they start doing food testing, it's anyone's guess, what we're actually consuming, and that's the scary part. I mean, without the knowledge, how do we do anything about it? I mean, our own backyard could be contaminated without knowing. We don't know where to turn and what to eat, what not to eat, where to get it, where not to get it, because, I mean, like you said, you can't see it. And compost is
part of the argument. And I'll show you this, Kelly. how it gets into the Kalamazoo River. Well, the Kalamazoo River goes into Lake Michigan. So this stuff gets carried into the Kalamazoo River, and it gets carried into Lake Michigan where it won't break down. So you know how vital the Great Lakes are to everybody. You know, the Great Lakes are like, so why would we allow PFAS to get into the Kalamazoo River and not fix the problem? That's the point I tried to make to the DEQ. You know,
they've been pumping water to other states.
Yeah, I took them to the source where it was leaving the dump, and it goes downhill into the Kalamazoo River.
Oh.
It goes into it goes into the Gun River, and then the Gun River feeds into the Kalamazoo River, and the Kalamazoo River goes into the Great Lakes. So why would we want to, you know, have PFAS get into the Lake Michigan and not stop it? Why can't we stop it, not Seagull, little by little, and protect our Great Lakes? I would think that would be pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, that affects multiple states, different countries. I mean, it's not just a local thing.
No, it's not only that, it's not a United States thing, it's a Canada thing too, because Canada uses the Great, so it's a North America thing. You know? Yeah. And we export fish from there. We have people vacation here. We have different states using the water because, you know, maybe like New Mexico has a drought. They're getting Great Lakes water because we have an abundance. You know, it's just not just a local thing or a Great Lakes thing. Yeah, it's not an Otsego thing. It's just not a Michigan thing. It's a little bit on the bigger scale of things. It's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's lots of campaigns on lots of different fronts on this pollution thing, and lots of battles. And sometimes we win the battles, and sometimes we don't. But the main thing is to keep going forward and keep fighting, and that's what we do.
Exactly.
I don't win every battle.
Yeah.
I don't win every battle, but I will take them on. And I have various projects in the area. You know, we found PFAS 10 miles away at an old dump site 10 miles from Otsego up in Martin the other day. I got word that we privately tested this old dump in Martin, Michigan, and we found PFAS over there 10 miles away from what happened in the 80s. So that was a victory. We were called in as support. You know, we supported the guy's effort and gave our opinion to what was going on. And so this other community just found PFAS the other day up there. So that was a good thing. That was a small project that we did. You know,
wow.
we do work together with other communities, you know.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's on a much larger scope than anybody can realize, because if you think about it, corporations have been everywhere since the industrial age and largely unregulated. So if you can think of where a large corporation or even a small one making stoves in Kalamazoo or Gibson guitars or, you know, pickles or, you know, whatever, you know, Checker cabs, you know, Checker motors, anything, computers.
It's kind of ghastly. A lot of our trips take us to old dump sites from 40 years ago that are all overgrown, but that's what we do. We go out to old dump sites and take a look if we can, if we can get access to it, and then we try to get the history behind the dump site and what happened. And, you know, that's part of what we do too, is go on trips and go out into the field and look at old contaminated sites and let somebody know, hey, you may have a problem here.
Yeah.
And we have about 4 or 5 of those in the works, at, you know, at various things that we've come across, and you know, and so we research what's called the triangle in Southwest Michigan. There's a triangle of pollution, and so that's our primary focus is this triangle between these cities, and so that's where that's kind of our boundary where we stay. We find a lot of stuff in that triangle.
Wow.
Rumor becomes, it goes from rumor to truth to fact, and that's how your case starts. You listen to some old wives' tale, and then you try to go find the documents behind it, and it's kind of like pollution hunting. That's what I call it, pollution hunting.
Oh.
Starts off as a rumor, and you try to justify what happened.
Oh, well, I know of one. I know of one that my dad grew up by. You know where Arlington is off of West Main, where Tiffany's liquor store is? That has like a drop-off that was behind his house, and people used to throw their junk back there in that drop-off. In fact, the drop-off area where the people's backyards were would grow as people dropped stuff back there. And so I would imagine there's some really interesting stuff down in there. And then there's, the businesses that would drop their stuff back there. So, people would do that and not think twice about it. And then kids would go down there and play.
Some of it is like, I'll give you an example. Out in Allegan County, there's a lake rumored that chemical barrels were dumped into this lake in the 1980s. Well, that's one of the things that intrigues us. Did they dump barrels into these lakes out there? These deep lakes that are 60 feet deep.
Oh.
So
and there's wow.
That's some of the stories that's some of the stuff that we look into. That would be up our alley. Investigating something like that.
Yeah. And my friend Ben was telling me, because he works with the police, that there's a lake that is up by Doster, and it's not Lake Doster, but it's a different one, where a lady drove her vehicle off the road by accident into it. It's like this pond-looking thing. But when they went to dredge it to get her vehicle out, they ran out of line after about 125 feet trying to pull it out, and they couldn't find it because it's so deep. Who knows what's down there?
Well, that's funny that you mentioned Lake Doster, because that's where our emphasis is up that way, is to Lake Doster. And there's a huge dump outside of Lake Doster that contaminated some of the homes out there, and nobody knows about, because I called the Lake Doster president, Laker, and he didn't know about this dump that was across the road. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow. And those are expensive homes.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Are we running
sorry.
out of time?
Yeah, sorry. It's okay. We're running out of time. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Wow. We're going to have you on again, especially in October when you start, getting some of your reports back.
So, yeah, that's kind of where our research takes us. You never know which way the wind is going to blow, and we're going to investigate it.
Thank you for everything you're doing out there, Chris. We really are glad to have you on to help expose what's going on. And we just thank you for never quitting. And you just are going and going and going until you can't go anymore, which I don't know when that's going to be. You seem to have a lot of energy. We appreciate you. And we're grateful for you to bring this to our attention. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Kind of my service to the nation.
I hope we helped.
I kind of have that loyalty to the state.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.
And thank you.
The oath I took in 1988 to protect the nation, protect my hometown, that's kind of where that's what I use. I took the oath, when I joined the Army. And that oath is unbinding. I'll never break that oath. And so, yeah, now I use a computer and I do police, and I don't carry a rifle anymore, but you know, I can fight this war and protect the people in my hometown by being a researcher. Well, it's just an extension of the oath that I took.
Oh,
That's the way I look at it. It's an unbinding oath. You know?
Yeah.
You took an oath to defend the country. Well, that's what I'm doing. You know.
We need more people like you.
Well, you have them out there. You got a lot of veterans and a lot of older people that, you know, have causes, and, you know, they'll tell you the same thing. I took an oath, and that oath is unbinding. It's just, it's kind of sacred.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. I don't want you to get cut off, so we're gonna. Yeah, but thank you for your service.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to get shuffling to work pretty soon, but yeah, I wanted to touch base with you and thank you for being on your show today, and it was very nice to talk to all of you.
Yeah,
very nice to talk to you too again. And stay in touch like we always do.
Yeah.
I'll keep you informed of what's going on in the next few weeks. It should get exciting. It should warm up again, and we should have some more details and more information should be coming out on the soil testing next month.
Excellent.
Oh,
well,
good.
Yeah.
You guys update it, definitely.
Yeah.
Kelly, let me know your schedule, and we'll go out there, and I'll show you. It doesn't take long to get out there. You have to do a little it's a little walk, a little nature walk, a few hundred yards nature walk, but it's not bad. And I'll show you how bad it is out there.
Perfect. I'll bring my camera.
Yeah. And I'll get a hold of you maybe next week. We can run out there and I'll show you it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
You soon. Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a wonderful day.
You too.